Okay, so starting today, we will look at a few problems that should work as good revision for mains as well as NEET. I think the difficulty level, at least according to me, it's more or less same. Okay, so the problems that we will look at should work as revision. Okay, so let's take few problems from units, dimensions, and errors. Okay. Okay, so try to work on this problem. Okay, so the maximum error is what we need to find. So how do we find the maximum error here?
Multiply the power and the percentage error.
I think we can just take 5 times of A, because these are all products, and whether you multiply or divide, what do you do?
You add all the errors.
But the problem is we will first get the relative error. So relative error is basically the addition of relative errors in each of these quantities. Okay, and then the relative error, if multiplied by 100, I'll get the percentage in error. So I think you are okay here. Okay, so I'll get 5 times because I'm multiplying A 5 times. So delta A by A plus 3 times delta B by B, uh, plus let's say 2 times delta D by D, and then that's very nice. Okay, so whenever you divide, even then you're supposed to add. I think sometimes that is where students go wrong. So you need to add here. So it is like the power is 3 by 2, so delta C over C. And then if I multiply by 100 on either side, I'll get the percentage. So I'm just multiplying this by 100. So percentage error in X will be 5 times. This is 2 plus 3 times 3. D is 7. So plus 3 by 2 into 6. So this is 10, 9, and then 14. I think that's 33. 33 plus 9.
Fine.
So 42%. So the, yeah, option is A. Very good. Okay, so try this. Okay, so a student is performing a resonance tube experiment. I think if you recall the resonance tube experiment, you know that the first resonance occurs at the minimum possible length of the air column.
Mm.
Okay, then after that, for higher lengths of the air column, you will get the other harmonics, the higher
Mm.
frequencies, because we are looking at a closed tube, because the lower end of the tube has water in it. Okay, so the tube looks something like this. So you have water here, that's water. And I think in the lab, when you do this experiment, this is filled with air usually. But here, the problem says that you are filling with different type of gases. Okay, so you are filling with a gas, and the minimum height at which the resonance occurs, so that should correspond to the first harmonic or the fundamental frequency. Okay, so that is the minimum frequency. So that means we want to get maximum possible wavelength. So here, if I consider a displacement, uh, at the water end there should be a node, and at the open end there should be an antinode. Okay, so you should get some picture like this. Okay, So the distance between antinode and node is lambda by 4. Okay, so we can say lambda by 4 is L. So lambda is 4L here. Okay. And the velocity of sound, the speed of sound in air or in any gaseous medium, you can write it as square root of gamma RT by M. Okay. Now, if I use the relation between frequency and wavelength and velocity, so I can also write this as wavelength into frequency. So the frequency is given, so that is 244 hertz. So here we can write this as 4L into frequency. And in the problem, the length of the gas column is given. Okay, so we are trying to get a length which is close to this value, 0.35 meters. So you have some error. Now from here, L can be written as 1 by 4F into square root of gamma RT by M. Okay, so we're going to use this. Now suppose if I, let's say, try to get the length of the gas column assuming that it is filled with neon. Okay, so that's an assumption. So if I'm assuming that it is filled with neon, so the length will be 1 by 4 into 244 into square root of, okay, so neon is a monoatomic gas. Okay, so gamma for monoatomic gases is 1.67, right? I think you know that, right? Gamma is Cp by Cv.
Yeah.
Okay, which is Cp is 5 by 2 R
5 by 2.
and Cv is 3 by 2 R for
3 by
monoatomic
2
gases.
R.
So you will get 5 by 3, which is 1.67. Okay, so we can take that as 1.67 into R T by the molar mass is 20 grams. So if I convert that into kgs, so I'll get 20 into 10 to the power minus 3 kgs. So now they've given us the square root of 167 RT. They're saying, okay, you take it as 640. So I'll convert the numerator inside the square root to, let's say 167. And what do we have here? I have 1 by 4 into 244 into square root of 167 RT. Okay, so instead of a monoatomic gas, if I use a diatomic gas, instead of 1.67, I'll use 1.40. I think you know that, right? You will get 7R by 2 by 5R by 2. So that is 7 by 5. So I'll use 1.40.
7 by 5.
That is where I think this will become, where is the other one? Okay. I think there is a, when I typed it, I typed it wrongly. I think this should be 140. Okay, so this is a mistake. I think this is square root of 140 RT. I think if I remember, this is 590. Okay, so the units are same. Okay, now here, if you look at the denominator inside the square root, if I've converted 1.67 to 167, I would divide the number by 100, right? So in the denominator, I'll get simply square root of 1 by 2, which can easily be written as 10 by 20. Okay, so that is where they're saying, I mean, I'll write it here. So length can be written as roughly, look at this now. This, again, calculations are difficult. So this 4 into 244, suppose if I roughly write it as 1000. I know it is lesser than that. Instead of 244, I'm assuming it is 250. So I'm going to write it as 1000. Now square root of 167 RT, they're saying, okay, take it as 640. Now square root of 10 by 20, take it as 7 by 10. Okay. Now this 1000 is going to help us in calculating y, because the answer is given, let's say after the decimal point, you have three numbers. So if I ignore this 3, I'll multiply this 0.350 by 1000. So I'm looking at a 3-digit answer, ignoring the first factor. Is that okay? But, okay. Now 640 into 7. So by 10. So I'll just multiply 64 into 7. I think that's 28,448. Now, but we know that we will actually get a number which is greater than 448. So definitely this is not neon. You understand? We are looking at a number which is close to 350.
350.
Okay. So definitely this is not neon. So we will try, I think for the same thing, we can try for argon maybe. Okay. Or maybe we'll go in sequence, because we will have to try everything here anyway. So let's say if I try nitrogen. For nitrogen, what will I get? So length, I'll still use that 1 by 1000. That is common anyway. Now instead of square root of 167 RT, I'll get 140 RT.
140 RT.
They have given us that as 590. So I'll just use that. Then if you see, we will get, instead of this square root of 10 by 20, we will get this 10 by 28.
10 by 28.
Yeah, so we can use that. So square root of 10 by 28 will be 3 by 5. So we can directly put that 3 by 5. And again, I'm ignoring this. Okay, so I'm ignoring this. I'm only writing this quantity. Let's calculate this. So how much is this? 0, 27, then 17. So if I divide by 5, so what do I get here? I get 3 and then 54. So now again, we are dividing by 1000, but we are supposed to divide by a number which is smaller than this 1000. So that means we will get more than 354.
More than 3.
So that means even nitrogen cannot be the answer. Okay, so now we will try with oxygen. Now when we are trying with oxygen, I think all we have to use is that fraction 9 by 16. You understand? We have already done the calculations when we did for neon. So for oxygen, again, we say, okay, length will be 1 by 1000 into that 590 number. And then what is the fraction given? That is
9 by 16.
Okay, so now we will have to see. So this will be, again, I'm ignoring this. So I want the product of these two to be close to 350. So do you think I will get? So let's say if I, so 9, 81, 45, 53 by 16. So let's divide this. And what are we getting?
331.
3?
Something. 331.
Okay, but this is close. So the number will be closer to 350. So, but we cannot, there is a risk here. We cannot just directly jump and then take this. We'll have to see the last option also. So for argon, we will be taking that 640, right? So let's say for argon, the length is 1 over 1000 into 640. So what is the fraction that we have? Fraction is 17 by 13. 17 is a very bad number.
17? That's 7 by 32. Oh, 17 by 32.
So how much is that? This is a very, not a very nice number, right?
It's just 20 into 17 now.
20 into?
17.
Oh, nice. This is actually a nice number. Oh, what am I thinking? This is actually nice. 20 into 13, 340. Now, which has a higher chance of going towards 350? I think 340 has a higher chance, na, than 331, because
Mm.
instead of 1000, we will have a smaller number.
Yeah.
So that means I think we can confidently take D
Okay.
as the option. But I think there are some calculations. It's a very nice question. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So let's, okay, so try to look at this problem. Okay, so whenever they give you a problem on vernier calipers, understand that the least count, okay, so the least measurement that we can, let's say, make is one main
One
scale
and
division
yeah.
minus one vernier scale division. So keep this in mind.
Mm.
Now, one main scale division is given. And then there is some additional information to figure out one vernier scale division. So how do I find one vernier scale division? So they're saying 20 equal divisions on the vernier scale. So 20 vernier scale divisions, they're equal to 16 main scale divisions. So 16 MST. So one vernier scale division will be 16 by 20, or we can write this as 0.8 into one main scale division is 1 mm. So this is 0.8 mm. So if I substitute here, I get 1 minus 0.8. So the least measurement that I can make is 0.2 mm.
Mm.
So you understand this?
Yeah.
Okay, so try this. Okay, so whenever you're using a vernier calipers to get a reading, you should understand that the reading is taken as main scale reading. Okay, so if the vernier scale, the I mean, if they coincide, okay, so wherever the end of the, or if you think about that zero of the vernier scale, if it coincides exactly with one of the main scale readings, then that is the answer. Okay, so if it doesn't coincide, the zero of the vernier will be coinciding, sorry, the some division of the vernier scale will coincide with one of
Thanks.
the main scale divisions. You understand? Okay, so if the zero does not, if zero of the vernier does not, then some other division of the vernier will coincide with a particular, let's say, main scale division. You understand?
Mm.
So you will have to add something extra. So add n into n is the number of division of the vernier scale that coincides with one of the main scale divisions. Okay, so that into least count.
Least
So
count.
you need to add this. You understand this idea?
Yeah.
Why we do this?
Yeah.
Okay. So now here, if you read the information, they're saying the zero of the vernier scale lies between 5.10 centimeter and 5.15 centimeters. So from this information, we can, let's say, infer that there is no other division between these two markings on the main scale. Is that okay?
Mm.
So I have 5.10 and then I'm directly going to 5.15 on the main scale division. So there is nothing in between. So that means if I take one main scale division, okay, it is worth 0.05 centimeters.
0.5 centimeters. Okay.
You understand? Okay. Now
Mm.
we need to get one vernier scale division to get the least count. Okay, so in order to do that, what they have given here, the vernier scale has 50 divisions. If you take the length of those 50 divisions, that would be equivalent to 2.45 centimeters. So I can say 50 vernier scale divisions is 2.45 centimeters. So one vernier scale division would be if I divide 2.4 by 50, I think we will get 0.049 centimeters. Is that okay? Then from here we will get the least count. So least count is 1 MSD minus 1 VSD. So 0.05 minus 0.049. So that would give us 0.001 centimeters. So once we have this, I think we can just substitute here. Now again, what will be the main scale reading? Because the zero of the vernier is between this reading 5.10 and 5.15. So you're sure of this reading, right? So the main scale reading will be 5.10 centimeters plus 24 multiplied by least count, which is 0.01. So that would, oh, sorry, I have another zero here, 0.001. So we should get 5.124 centimeters. Okay, so you understand this?
Yeah.
So the answer should be B. Okay, so try this one. Okay, so nice. I think that's the correct answer. So here, how do we get the main scale reading is anyway 0. So we are just trying to get the reading would be n into the least count. Okay. So the circular scale reading is that n. So that is 52. So how do we get the least count for a screw gauge? You take that main scale reading, main scale division, and then you divide by the number of divisions on the circular scale. So you have 100 divisions. So I mean, when you rotate the screw by, let's say, those 100 divisions, you advance
1
by 1 millimeter, right?
mm.
So you have 0.01 millimeters. Okay, so you just substitute here 0.01 millimeters. So that would be 0.52 millimeters. So the options are in centimeters. So this will be A. Very good. Okay, so now let us move on. Okay, so we will look at a few problems in, let's say, one-dimensional motion. Okay, so take a look at this one. Okay, so actually to answer this question very quickly, you can use, if you know something known as Galileo's law of odd numbers. Okay, so there is something known as Galileo's law of odd numbers. What this says is, if you drop anything, okay, in each second, the distance covered by the freely falling object, okay, so the distances are in the ratio of odd numbers. So they'll be like 1:3:5:7 and so on. Now we can easily understand this. So if something, let's say, is dropped from the top of a tower, in 1 second, okay, so in 1 second, the distance covered will be, if I take g as 10, half gt square. So I'll have 5 into 1 square. So in 2 seconds, so it will cover 5 into 2 square. And in 3 seconds, it will cover 5 into 3 square and so on. Or let's say in 4 seconds, this is not fourth second, in 4 seconds, starting from the beginning. So 5 into 4 square. Now, if I look at the first second, the distance would be 5 into 2 square minus 1 square, right? So I'll get what, sorry, this gap would be giving me the distance covered in the second second. Understand? So
Yeah.
this will be the distance covered in the first second anyway. So that is 5. This is in first second. The distance covered in first second. Now, if you see this, this is 5 into 3. So that's a distance covered in the second second. And then if I want the distance covered in the third second, I'll take the difference between, let's say, the distance covered in 3 seconds from the beginning minus and the distance covered in 2 seconds. So which is 5 into 3 square minus 2 square. So that is 5 into 5. So that is the distance covered in the third second. If you look at these numbers, they're in the ratio of 1 is to 3 is to 5. You understand? So that means all we have to do is the distance covered in the 5th second and the 10th second will be in the ratio of 5th odd number and 10th odd number. So what is the 5th odd number? 9.
Yeah.
What is the 10th odd number? 19. So the answer is B.
Okay. Okay.
You understand? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So try this one. Okay, so the problem looks complicated, but it's actually not complicated. See, just understand the question. What are they saying here? So electron is moving with some speed, and then it hits a paper sheet. So if I look at, let's say, look at the edge of the paper. So let's say the paper is going into the board, and then this is the thickness. Okay, so it's not this thick, but let's say this is the thickness. So we can consider thickness as the displacement covered by the electron. So electron starts with some velocity u, and then, okay, so once it is inside the paper, there's some deceleration happening. So there's uniform resistance, and then it again comes out of the paper with velocity v. So we're asked to find the time taken by the electron to pass through the sheet of paper. So here we can just use one of the kinematic equations because the problem says uniform resistance. So that means the acceleration is
Uniform.
but acceleration is not given. Okay, so we know if I look at this kinematic equation, S is equal to ut plus half a t square, I can actually write it a little differently. So I can actually take the average of the velocities, initial and final velocities, into time taken. You know, you can write the above equation like this. So then we are done here. So the displacement is 2.6 micrometers. So which is 2.6 into 10 to the power minus 6 meters. So the average of the velocities, so 7 plus 6 by 2 into 10 to the power 6 and then into time t. So what do we get here? I think 7 plus 6 is 13. So we should get, this is 0.2, and then I think we should get 4 into 10 to the power minus 13 seconds. Okay, so do you understand the problem?
Yeah.
So we just have to use the kinematic equation here. Okay, so try this problem. Okay, so the problem says a particles, that is very bad, a particle starts at point A and then moves along a straight path, so to point B. So the velocity here is 0. At the end also velocity is 0. So we're asked to find the maximum velocity of the particle. The acceleration as a function of position is given. Okay. So now acceleration is dv by dt. Okay. So I can write dv by dt is equal to 4 minus 25x. Okay, there are three variables here: velocity, time, and position. So what we can do is the left-hand side, if I multiply by dx and then divide by dx, this is a usual trick, right? So here, if I combine dx and dt, I can take that as velocity.
Velocity.
Okay, so we can write this as v dv by dx. So dx, I'm taking it to the right-hand side. So from here, I think we can get velocity as a function of x. So by integrating. So initially, when position is 0, the velocity is 0. So we'll try to get velocity as a function of x. So the left-hand side is v square by 2. So the right-hand side is 4x minus, oh, sorry, what am I doing? Why did I write 4 minus 25? That's a mistake. Do you see what I did?
Oh, oh yeah.
That's very bad. I should write 4 minus 25x into dx.
Dx.
Yeah. So I'll get 4x minus 25x square by 2. Okay, now they're saying the velocity at A and B are 0. Now, if I take this v square by 2 as some function y, so if v is maximum, v square by 2 is also maximum. So that means y is maximum, right? Now, this is a quadratic expression. I think you know about quadratic expressions. If the coefficient of x square is negative, then you will, in between, there will be a maximum. So y versus x graph would be something like this. Are you okay? So now, because at the end points, we have 0. So that means the maximum will be exactly in between. So I think I should actually start from 0 here. So let's say it should start like this. So I can get this value x. So I'll equate this to 0. So if I equate this to 0, I'll get x as, how much is that? Okay, question. I think I might be doing a mistake. Can I equate this to 0? Yeah, if I equate this 0, I'll get this one, this value. Okay. You understand, beta?
Ah, yeah.
No, I will not get this value. So by mistake, don't take this value. So if I'm equating this to 0, x will be 8 by
25.
8 by 25. So that means this value will be exactly in between. So this value will be 8 by 50. Are we okay? So 8 by 50 would be how much? So I can take that as 4 by 25. Okay. So now at this value, I'll get maximum value of velocity. You understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now if I substitute x is equal to 4 by 25. So what do we have here? We have v square by 2 is 4x minus 25x square by 2. So let's substitute 4 by 25 here. Minus 25 by 2 into 4 by 25 square. So I think this will be 16 by 25 and minus I think 25. So what do we get here? 16 by 2. So 8 by 25. So we get 8 by 25. So v square happens to be 16 by 25. So v will be 8 by 5. Sorry. Square root of 16 is
4, 4.
4. Yeah. So 4 by 5. So that's the magnitude of maximum velocity, which is 0.8 meter per second. You understand? Now, there's another thing that students do. Once you get a function of x, y as a function of x, you can also get the derivative. See, at the maximum value of y, the slope of tangent is 0.
0.
Okay, so you could take the derivative here. So dy by dx and then equate it to 0. So we get 4 minus 25x is 0. So x is equal to, we get what? Yeah. Yeah, so we
4
get
by
the same
25.
value. X is equal to 4 by 25. You'll get the same value. So that is another thing that you can use. But I think either way is fine here. You understand?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so try this one. So here, once the parachutist bails out, okay, so let's say he jumps out of a plane, suppose, and then initially for 50 meters it falls without any friction, right? So let's say I'll draw here. One second, let me draw the parachutist. Where's this guy? Okay, so let's say, so he jumps off. So he has a parachute, but he's unable to open it for 50 meters. Okay, so he is under free fall for 50 meters. Now initial velocity is 0. Okay, so if I take, let's say g as 10 meter per second square, we'll have to find the moment he is able to open the parachute. Okay, so if he is able to open the parachute, he will have some velocity here. So that we can find using v square minus u square is equal to 2as. So v initial velocity is 0. So 2a is 10 into s is 50. So we'll have to take a square root of this. So that's, I think, square root of 1000, or we can say 10 root 10. So that is the velocity he has when he has successfully opened the parachute up. Now, because of the parachute, he is able to now reduce his speed. Okay, so there is, let's say, I mean, you have this air resistance right now build up. Okay, because of that, there is deceleration. So we can say there is acceleration in the upward direction. Okay, now we'll have to use this acceleration till he hits the ground. Okay, so as he hits the ground, he is hitting with what speed? 3 meter per second. Okay, now again, to get this displacement, let's say this is delta y, I can still use this equation. So finally, he has 3 meter per second speed, so which is 3 square 9 minus, so this is 1000 is equal to 2. The acceleration is in the upward direction, so I'll take minus 2 into delta y. So delta y would be how much? 991 by 4. So what do we get here? 2 and then 4, I think 7.75 something. So again, we add 50 to that. I think because the problem does not say whether to use 9.8 or 10, but if you look at the options, they're very far off.
Yeah.
So the only possibility is 293 meters. Okay, so we need to add this 50 as well to 247. So the answer will be 293. Okay, so try this one.
I did a mistake in integration.
Yeah, 2 seconds is correct. See, the acceleration as a function of velocity is given, initial velocity is given, we're asked to find the time taken by the object to come to rest. So this is like simple integration problem. You just separate the variables here. So I'll write dv by root v, and the right hand side I'll take the time variable, so 2.5 into dt, and then I integrate on both sides. So initially the velocity is 6.25. Yeah, I'm supposed to keep this minus here. Okay, that is important. Now final time is t, and then the velocity is v. So here I could write the function as v to the power minus half, right? 1 by square root of v, I can write it as v to the power minus half. So the integral will be v to the power minus half plus half, which is v to the power half by half. And then you have this upper limit 0, so lower limit 6.25. And the right hand side is 2.5 into t. And then if you substitute the values, so if you substitute 0, anyway I have 0. So this is 2 into square root of 6.25 with a minus sign, and that is minus 2.5 t. So from here you will get time as 2 seconds. So the answer is A. Okay, so try this problem. Okay, so in this problem, a stone is thrown from the top of tower. So that's the tower. So the initial velocity is 30 meter per second, and then it is making an angle of 30 degrees. So we're asked to find the height of the tower if this stone hits the ground in 7 seconds. So what we can do is, if I break this velocity into two components and get the vertical component, because the time depends only on the vertical direction. So vertical component is 30 sine 30, which is 15 meter per second. And then I can simply use S is equal to ut plus half a t square. And then I'll consider upward direction as positive. So any vector pointing upwards is positive. So the displacement is in the downward direction. So that is minus h, okay, is equal to u, which is 15, and then 7 seconds plus half. G is in the downward direction, so minus 10, and then 7 square. So what do we have here? This is 105, and then minus, what do we get here? 5 into 49, right? Or 490 by 2. So how much is 490 by 2? I think that is 145. So from here, the height of the tower happens to be 140 meters. Oh, I think I made a small mistake here. This 490 by 2 is 245. Yeah, I think I wrote the answer from my memory. So that will be 140. Yeah, that's right.